You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So, having lived in Las Vegas for years, people always seem to bag on it when they don't live in Las Vegas. But you could give Las Vegas a thank you because this was the birthplace of no tax on tips. So, you're welcome. Yes, Las Vegas is pretty cool. President Trump, I believe, was in Southern Nevada to do a no tax on tips roundtable to explain it and talk about it. And one thing that I liked about no tax on tips is not only did Trump embrace it, but Kamala Harris did too. It was something that bipartisanly was popular. And I like to see bipartisan stuff. I like to see that we make some common sense decisions that bipartisanly people. And so Kamala Harris also said, we'll do that too. But Trump will give credit where credit is due. And he didn't say he pulled that idea out of his retroperitoneum. He said he got that idea because of a young waitress. When he was in Las Vegas, I don't know if he was at the Trump Hotel or whatever, but at dinner, the waitress, he said, told him, you need to do no tax on tips, or why don't we have that, where our tips aren't getting taxed? And then he decided to run with that. And so I'm glad. I don't want him taking credit or Kamala Harris taking credit that they just thought of that. There was a birthing of that, and it happened to be in Vegas. So thank you. Now, when no tax on tips, though, was suggested, people were a little concerned because they were saying, well, wait a second here, okay? Especially in Las Vegas, some of these people making a couple $100,000 a year. And now they're not going to pay taxes, come on. Or they were concerned that because there was such a pressure to tip, that now this was going to even get worse. Or there was going to be a manipulation of the cost of the good so that you were paying more in tips because there'd be less of a tax burden. So people got a little nervous. So what Congress did, which I think was smart, was they capped it. So it's not for these people making $200,000-$300,000 a year in tips, being, bartending at high end and valeting and all that. It's about $25,000. The $25,000 will not be taxed. So that adds $25,000 to your income without you getting taxed. So it wasn't a no tax on tips across the board for any tip, but it was still pretty significant. So if you're a hairstylist, if you're a bartender, if you are a massage therapist, if you get tips, you up to $25,000, not going to be taxed. Pretty cool. Now, does the average person claim their taxes? Well, interestingly, when I waited tables, if the tip was given by credit card, the boss had to turn around and pay us. And there was obviously a paper trail. But if somebody is getting cash from somebody, it's the honor system if they're telling somebody about it. And so I know a lot of people are looking at it going, well, now people are going to just ask for more cash so they could pocket it so that whatever is being told to the IRS, now they're getting $30,000 in tips or $40,000 of tips that are not taxed. The system isn't perfect. But I do like the idea because when I waited tables, to pay tax on your tips was painful, especially when you're only averaging $1 or $2 an hour. See, I worked at a place where you weren't making minimum wage because you made tips. And then your tips would get taxed and your take home would get less and less. So single filers with a modified adjusted income of under $150,000 or joint under $300,000 can claim the deduction. So if you are a millionaire and you're getting tips, you probably can't claim the deduction. But if you're making six figures, 150 grand, 300 grand as joint, you can still claim it. Now, the tips have to be voluntary. None of this mandated tip amount to a table or whatever. They have to be voluntary. You still would have to pay maybe income tax and payroll tax, but in terms of federal income tax, it lowers that part of federal income tax. What would that translate into? Well, they say, like, for example, if let's say you are a food server and you earn 20 grand in tips, but you're in the 22% tax bracket, that could save you about $4,400 in taxes. That's a lot of money. So your bartenders, your casino dealers, hotel concierge, housekeepers, baggage porters, fitness instructors, massage therapists, a lot of gig workers will do okay. However, if the tip is digital, it should still, like for example Uber and all that, the amount of tips should still protect or that amount. But if you're like, well, I was pocketing the cash. And then that could, and does the tip still put you in the higher tax bracket? That's why some people are a little upset that they're like, yeah, but now that the government knows what I'm getting tipped on, now I'm at a higher tax bracket. I don't think it's that much to affect you to that degree. But yes, that is that is a criticism of it. So, where we're going with in America with it, I like how in Europe, although I tip when I'm in Europe, but I kind of like how the price you're paying for the service and food, which is already kind of inflated, covers everything. I can't stand the fact that I am paying for this and this and this, and when it's all said and done, I have to, now there's a back to, so like I've been to parties where they will say, and your gratuity. And so you'll pay that. And then they'll expect more gratuity on top of that. And you're like, but I already paid 20%. Now, and then I'm like, well, and then they're like, yeah, but that's not for us. That's for other individuals that took part of this. And you're like, okay, wait a second. I thought gratuity is gratuity. And people are very, very frustrated. And now people are like, no tips, no tips, no tips. And so Congress had to be kind of careful with this because they didn't want this this pressure of you got to tip because that's where we're going to now be able to cash in on more income and money. But for now, if we just look at it simplistically, it's helping a lot of people. They're saving money and came from Vegas. Okay, we Vegas folk rock because we understand hospitality. We're pretty good at it. But we also understand that we got to keep our workers. Our workers are not going to want to work if they're not, they're getting taxed on everything and not bringing enough home. So pretty cool. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, Dr. Dahlia.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
We're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, my producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So this article caught my eye. They say students of color are at greater risk for reading difficulties, even in kindergarten. And they said Black, Hispanic, and Native American students are more likely than white or Asian students to struggle with reading. This is according to research being reported by The Conversation. They said during kindergarten, they are more likely to score in the lowest 10% on assessments, measuring skills such as letter recognition, vocabulary, recognizing common sight words. They say large racial and ethnic differences and the risks for reading difficulties continue as students move through elementary school, and then a pattern largely explained, they say, by family income and early academic skills. Now, the study was published online in November 2025 in the Journal of School Psychology, and they said that 15% of Black, Hispanic, and Native American kindergartners they scored in the lowest 10% of reading, compared to 6 and 8% of white and Asian students. By fifth grade, 18%, 16%, and 10% of Black, Hispanic, and Native American students were struggling. This was contrasted to white and Asian students at about 5%. Now, this data was analyzed by the U.S. Department of Education's National Center for Education Statistics, which was, sorry about my lisp, lisp. I have a lisp and a stutter, sorry. From 2010 to 2016 was the data set. And they say the data includes direct academic assessments as well as surveys of the students and their parents, teachers, and school administrators. They said they use standard statistical methods. I got to tell you, man, this article is killing me with the S's. I can't say S's. And they looked at a wide range of factors across homes and schools measured during kindergarten. They said one key factor was a family's socioeconomic status, a measure including household income and parental education levels and occupations. They say kindergartners who struggle with initial reading, math, and science, as well as more general learning abilities such as working memory, were at higher risk for reading difficulties throughout school. So I know a lot of people are looking at these going, I don't understand. They'll say, I don't understand how, if you have students in the same class, why some are doing better than others. So I can actually provide some evidence to this because I went to 12 schools, and a couple of the years my family was doing okay monetarily, and in some years we were living in my grandma's living room. We lived in a motel. And one school that I remember that I went to, it was called Robert E. Lee Elementary. Now I think they've renamed it. And my teacher was Mrs. Barbero. I liked her. She was nice. But I mean, she did threaten to paddle us. So there was paddling in the 80s. And the Nevada schools would paddle more than the Arizona schools. And I went to 12 different schools between Nevada and Arizona because my dad gambled a lot. And then he would win money and then he would lose money. And I noticed that when we were in a townhome or a home, in the school district there, it seemed like the teaching in the schools were a little different than when I lived in the motel or an apartment. And I did notice that the academics were different. And it wasn't necessarily just the school district, because I went to 2 fifth grades, 2 sixth grades, 2 senior year high. I mean, so I got to see both a Maricopa County and a Clark County school. And depending on where I lived, I did notice there was a difference. And one example I remember, and again, I was a kid, so I don't remember much, but I remember being new in Mrs. Barbero's class. And she gave an assignment that was pretty, I remember, difficult. And it was a lot of work. And I didn't have the money to have those nice folder toppers. You know how you would have it wouldn't be laminated, but you had the plastic with the plastic clear sheets, and to make the report look really, really nice and professional. So I had used a couple pieces of paper from my sister's notebook and tried to staple them and make it look nice because we just didn't have money. There was no way. And I was able to put this together, and it was like multiple pages. I think it was like 30, 40 pages of the assignment. And I worked really, really hard. And I go up to the teacher and I turn it in. And she said, "What is this?" And I go, "This is the assignment. It was due today." And she looked at me and she goes, "You did it?" And I go, "Well, yeah, you assigned the assignment." She's like, "Well, nobody else did it, so you could keep it." Now, I had worked really, really hard on that. And I said, "Can you please look at, I worked really hard on this. I really want to turn it in." So she said, "Fine, you can leave it on my desk." So I sit back down, and I mean, we are talking, I stressed over this assignment. Because my parents told us, it doesn't matter where we're living or on what floor we're sleeping on or whatever. If I don't do well in school, we're getting the belt, right? So, I was going to do any assignment we had to and just make it work. And then the next day, I go, "Did you look at my assignment? How did I do?" And she grabs it, she puts a B on there and hands it to me. So I sit back down with this assignment that was obvious she didn't read, that she put a B on. It's not Mrs. Barrow's fault. It's, she was still teaching and she had, but it was a much different experience than in other classes I've had where you had to do the assignment, it got looked at, it got credit, and I'm not sure what was going on at the time where an assignment that big, because I wouldn't have done it if I would have still done myself, but it was obviously of some importance. And I don't think she was joking about it, but the fact that nobody else in class did it, if that was at another school, everybody would have gotten Fs. Parents would have been called. And so I wonder if so I can attest that depending on the different schools I was at, there was a difference in priorities and teaching styles, which is why I really think we might need to nationalize the school system so that everybody is learning the same things and the guidelines are pretty uniform throughout. And you're not going to have an issue with lack of teaching abilities, et cetera, because the curriculum was always there. And as I've always said, I think the mornings should be no longer than 20, maybe no longer than 30, but maybe 20 minutes for your math, for your reading, for your English, for your social studies, because nobody wants to sit there an hour. Your core stuff is in the morning. Lunchtime could either be at home or in the lunchroom, depending on if you get bullied or not, where you want to eat. And in the afternoon is all your practical learning. And whether you're in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, or 10th grade, your practical learning will include how to garden, how to work out, what all the different trades are, marketing, teaching, medicine, law. So depending on how old you are, the older you are, you'll get to do plumbing and electricity. The younger you are, you'll get to learn farming, things like that, depending on the if there's anything dangerous, for example. And then by the time you graduate the 10th grade, you're done with high school. You're proficient. You have an idea of what you want to do in life, or at least go in terms of trade school or college. And then your 11th and 12th grade, because taxpayers cover you till 12th grade, you will now get your associate's degree while you're in class on that high school property, or your trade certificate. So everybody, by the time they are 18, have already an associate's degree or trade certificate. And the proficiency is there because you had everybody learned what was supposed to be learned. And maybe the uniformity is going to fix this. But when you hear that students of color and other demographics are not getting the same education or getting out of the school what other people are, that's a problem. And we want everybody to be successful. But I noticed that in some of the more affluent, there were a couple years where my folks, I think it's because there might have been money from a relative that might have died or something, or there might have been, I remember that a couple good years and we were able to live in a fairly nice area for about a year or two until my father lost money again. And then we went back to, but I noticed the schools were different. When I was in this relatively decent area, the school was all about SAT scores. And they're like, we're going to make sure that you guys get into, your Ivy League school. So we're going to make sure you ace the SAT. And because of that high school, I ended up getting a 1450 on my SAT. Whereas if I didn't go to that school and I went somewhere else where it was like, you did the assignment, you didn't have to do the assignment or whatever, I wouldn't have done as well. So why is there such a disparity between schools? None of them private. I never went to private. We never had money for that. So I think we can do a lot better, and we need to do better. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
And we are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So the flowers are blooming. The weather is warming. It's beautiful outside. The green grass and the trees are getting their leaves again. And this is the worst time of year for me. I cannot stand the spring. I don't mean to. I want to like it, but every year I hate it. Why? Because I can't breathe. My nose, my sinuses, I have to take allergy medicine, then I'm tired. I feel horrible. And mind you, I live in an area where the summers are brutal. And here I am, I can't wait for the spring to end. That's a problem because the spring is supposed to be the most amazing season. My favorite season, late fall and Christmas time. Get me to Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. I love that time of year. You know, it's interesting. My son was telling me that, you know, even though there's a lot of religious, there's a lot of religious, meanings, obviously, you know, behind Christmas and all that, and it's a very, very solemn day, that they, with German influence, etc., they had to make the holidays cheery like this because people would be so depressed in the winter. You know, the winter time was very isolating. It was very cold. And so having, you know, these holidays where we, trick or treat, or we do Thanksgiving, or getting people from being isolated to be around family, it was a treatment. It was a defense mechanism, so to speak. And it works for me. I don't mind it being cold outside, and I don't mind snow and all that because I love, even though I live in Southern Nevada, so I don't really get the snow like you all get in Minnesota, North Dakota, and New York. But still, I love snow. I've always loved snow, and I always try to get myself somewhere near snow during that time. I just notice I like that better. But it's not only just about Christmas time, but it's because in the spring, I am suffering. These allergies suck. Now, according to CNN, 25% of adults suffer from seasonal allergies. Now, I'm surprised it's only 25%. Why do we have allergies? Well, because of the pollen, There's more carbon dioxide, I guess, disrupting our atmosphere and change. Well, they believe that the carbon dioxide levels have been rising, so that's affecting our atmosphere and boosting temperatures, etc., elevating rainfall, which I find kind of a fascinating concept. This is from Dr. Ryan Salvador, who is a ENT, board certified ENT, because I've been told that climate change is causing droughts. So he's saying the climate change is causing elevated rainfall. So we need somebody to, what is it? By the way, we're supposed to be going into a big El Nino. El Nino means we're going to have a lighter hurricane season. We're still going to have a robust hurricane season, but it'll be less average to lower than average. On the other end, though, we're going to be getting a lot of rain on the west side of the country, which is kind of what we need. So I'm actually looking forward to El Nino. Less severe hurricane season, more rain on the west. So I'm pretty excited about that. But we won't see that till, in the summer. But in terms of allergy season, we've been seeing allergy season shift. Allergy season usually begins in the March, but we could see allergies as early as February. I start getting allergies in February. Many people might still get allergies in January because of tree pollens. It depends on where you live. If everything's all snowed out and your trees are all the leaves have fallen, you might not get the tree pollens. But where I live, where, in Vegas, it's cold, but we still have desert foliage. I notice my allergies start to kick in February. So I am miserable from February to June. Grass pollen follows the tree pollens. They start to rise in February or March. Then the weed pollens join the grass pollens. They join the party by the spring, and then weed pollens could extend through summer and fall. Ragweed is notorious for causing fall allergies. Fall allergies could start mid-August and extend to mid-November. So for me, I react now. For other people, they might react in the fall, which is why if you have asthma or COPD or chronic bronchitis or chronic sinusitis, you might want to be on allergy prevention medications prior and be a little bit more proactive, as it comes to allergies. So allergies is our immune system that is rejecting the foreign particulates. So when pollen gets into our system, your body wants to cough it out. It wants to sneeze it out. Your eyes want to go runny and teary, so it gets it out. You could be allergic to pollen, dust, dander, food, insects, mold, metals. We could be allergic to anything. Medicine, grafts, transfused blood. So our immune system, whether it's a pollen or whether it's a wrong blood type, knows what to do. And it's to protect us. But unfortunately, sometimes the hypersensitivity reaction can be serious. IgE antibodies will find the allergen, will activate mast cells in the tissue, basophils in the blood. When these cells get activated, they release substances like histamines, leukotrienes, cytokines, and they help the body attempt to sneeze and cough the allergen out, wall off the antigen, signal more antibodies, and then try to produce tears or nasal secretions to flush it out. It's a defense mechanism. But unfortunately, the sneezing, the coughing, the wheezing, the runny nose, the eye watering, the red eyes, the itchy skin, rashes, itchy throat, fatigue, congestion can be overwhelming. Now, it's not a cold. When you have allergies, it's not a cold because allergies can continue and be cyclical and last. Colds will die out in about 7 to 10 days. But colds are caused by a virus. You might get a little malaise, fever, achy. Whereas with allergies, you might get tired, but you aren't necessarily feeling that I feel sick. You feel, hay feverish type of thing. Plus, your nasal secretions are usually clear with allergies, whereas in a cold, they could be thicker and with color. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, if there's green nasal discharge, I have a bacterial infection. That was disproved in the 90s. And it was reinforced when we saw with COVID. People were having green nasal discharge with COVID. So viruses could also make your nasal secretions green. That's from the inflammatory cells and your macrophages that are trying to fight the infection. So, what about a sore throat? When an allergy sore throat is going to be dry and scratchy, a sore throat from a cold is going to feel more like pain, swelling, or pain and like razors. Both could make swelling. And unfortunately, some allergies could be so severe where you need to get epinephrine or steroid shots. So definitely watch your throat symptoms. I don't like to see throat symptoms and allergies because that suggests you could have a more severe allergy. But sometimes we do get dry, scratchy throats because of allergies. So what could you do to prevent them? Well, I like air purifiers. I think air purifiers are huge in terms of making your home a little bit of a free space. I don't want you to not go outside. I like to go outside and work out and walk the dogs, but unfortunately I'm sneezing. I come back in and I feel like crap. You got to maybe wash your hair from the pollen. I went to look at the pool. The pool was all yellow, not from the dog pee-pee, but from, it's not, well, it could be from pollen also, but we have trees that have yellow flowers and this dust and whatever. And so and it's not pollen, but the pool covered in it. And so when you go outside, you're bringing it back microscopically. So you might want to, if you don't have a mud room, take the clothes off, the shoes off, wash the hair so you don't have it on places, within your house. Antihistamines work for the histamine, but it doesn't work against everything. Sometimes we use like a nasal steroid spray. And a nasal steroid spray will decrease more of the allergens. We have leukotrienes, we have histamine, cytokines, so the steroids will suppress that. But I don't like to overdo steroids because we still have COVID, we still have infections. So I want to make sure our immune systems are still up and about. But for some of us, when our allergies are really bad, we get a shot of Kenalog, which is a steroid that sometimes will last a good few months. Don't do it if you have high blood pressure or diabetes or kidney disease. We don't want you getting high dose steroids, but sometimes that could allow more long-term protection. All right, 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So if you heard that somebody got drunk, right, and then hurt themselves getting drunk, you would be like, okay, man, you should have watched your liquor. Not cool, don't want you getting hurt, but would you expect them to sue and win a lawsuit? Apparently this person did. Apparently a woman claims and was able to sue Carnival Cruises successfully for over $300,000 because they said they shouldn't have given her more alcohol. when she was clearly inebriated. Diana Sanders, 45 years old, and this is being reported by Today, is a neonatal intensive care nurse. God bless our NICU nurses. They're amazing. But apparently she was on a cruise out of Vacaville, California. Or Vacaville? I guess there's a place called Vacaville, California. I've lived in California. I didn't know there was a city named that. And apparently she was given 14 shots of tequila in an 8-hour, 39-minute time span. So apparently she was drinking between 3 p.m. and 11:37 p.m. on January 5th of 2024. She was on the Carnival Radiance ship, according to the Miami Herald. While she was drunk, she suffered a, quote, severe fall down a flight of stairs. It resulted in several injuries, including but not limited to a concussion, headaches, possible traumatic brain injury, back injuries, tailbone injuries, bruising, and other injuries. So Miami federal jury ruled in favor of the passenger, gave her $300,000, $250,000 more than what was requested at the trial. She got $300,000. Why? Because the lawyers argued that the ship's bartenders were supposed to stop serving her once she became visibly intoxicated. Now, we do that in America on land. I don't know what the laws are on cruise ships, but what I have seen is when patients are paying for alcohol packages, they don't want to be told no. So I wondered if there has to be some fine print. I mean, I'm sure there would be, but saying, look, we could refuse and not give you any more alcohol, and then deal with that lawsuit when they say, but we paid for alcohol. So the lawyers said that the Carnival Cruise Line was more concerned with alcohol sales than passenger safety. Now they're suggesting that she paid for every shot, that this wasn't an alcohol package. I don't know. If it was an alcohol package, then they didn't make more money giving her more shots. But somehow the federal jury, because the woman was injured, went with the woman. And they accused Carnival of deliberately designing its vessels to ensure that there are alcohol serving stations in every nook and cranny of the ship. This way they can make more money as possible. Well, then I guess maybe it wasn't the alcohol passage. Who knows? So as part of Carnival's defense, the company said the passenger's inability to identify any crew member who overserved her or which bar she consumed the alcohol at. So the company said, if you're accusing a bartender of not, of not identifying who was that bartender, so we can, address it, and but she couldn't. And where did you get the alcohol? Did you buy tequila? Did you bring alcohol on board? Was it really our tequila? And so, the company said the overservice of alcohol count should be dismissed for failure to sufficiently identify a negligent employee. Carnival also argued that there were no allegations regarding plaintiff stumbling, sleeping at a bar, slurring her words, or exhibiting any other intoxicating-like behaviors. Now, there should be cameras, but so the reason why I find this fascinating is I see a lot of people get drunk, get stupid. And then they get mad if the bar or the restaurant decides to limit them or stop them or, say, look, we're going to get you an Uber or we're going to get you, or we're going to call, police to check on you or, they get mad at that. And I don't like the idea of somebody being damned if you do, damned if you don't. But bars have now taken on this liability of if you leave their establishment and drive drunk, it could be on them. See, it used to be on you. If you drove drunk, that was on you. But the argument lawyers make is, well, now this person is not of sound mind. And they were of sound mind when they went to your establishment, but now they're under the influence leaving your establishment. So it's on you. So now these companies have had to take on, and they've actually raised their alcohol prices. They're going to make money because they got to pay for lawyers. And so it's a much different feel in some of these places. Now with casinos, I'm not exactly sure how that works because people get free drinks, but I gotta tell you, the drinks are pretty watered down. But there are people that could walk out drunk, and I'm sure security may try and stop them. But I really don't know much about the liability of that. However, this person falls and hurts themselves. If you fall and hurt yourself on somebody's property, you could sue that person because it was their property. There weren't guardrails and things like that. People get drunk on these cruise ships all the time. Now, there was a wrongful death lawsuit filed in 2025 by the fiancé of 35-year-old Southern California man who died on board a Royal Caribbean cruise because he was served 33 alcoholic drinks in under 12 hours. So somebody died on a cruise because they overdrank. We've talked about alcohol toxicity and alcohol poisoning. So, where I kind of go from this is, people, I think, do understand when they're starting to drink too much, but also people are influenced. I've never gotten drunk to the point where I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm sure there are people that don't know what they're doing. I do think there is a responsibility to the bartender, but on a situation like this with this cruise, that maybe they need to reevaluate people getting drunk, because if people are falling off ships, swimming. How does that work? I've been on cruise ships. The pool is right there. There's jacuzzis. There's not lifeguards everywhere. There are some jacuzzis where there's no lifeguards around. And if people are drinking to the point where they're that drunk, 30 shots, 12 shots, 20 shots, they could drown. They could be stupid and try to do the Titanic thing where, watch me, I'm going to soar, and then they fall off the ship. Or they could go over the balcony and slam onto the promenade deck. How do these ships handle that? They got tons of crew members. Maybe they do have a plan. Maybe a lot of these cruise ships have a plan. And I've seen people party and I've seen people get drunk, but I've never seen somebody that bad. But apparently this is something that people do. And I always kind of wonder, how do we prevent more injuries? She could have died. I don't know if you've ever seen stairways on a cruise ship. It's kind of like the Titanic, the old movie where you'll have multiple stairs, bridging floors and if there's like a Carnival cruise ship with 10 floors, there's 10 flights of stairs. You could very easily fall, hit your head, hurt yourself. But usually there's somebody standing near the stairs to help you. There's cameras everywhere. But if people are going to be getting drunk and messing themselves up like this, that could be a problem. And one story also that caught my eye was how illegal aliens are getting taxpayer-funded boob jobs. I'm sure you guys heard this story, where in California, we are seeing individuals who are able to transition for free if they're illegal immigrants and not legal citizens, and that our tax dollars are going to that. Apparently, Manhattan Institute fellow Chris Rufo reports in a video that some illegal immigrants have accessed transgender medical procedures through California's Medi-Cal program. Now, we just talked about how Medi-Cal needs to stop covering Ozempic and things like that for overweight people because of money. So we got to look at the priorities. What is healthier for a person? We'll talk about this more on the next show. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.